Are regulators really any better prepared to catch financial criminals like Bernie Madoff than they were 2 years ago? Well, our chief Washington correspondent, Peter Cook, back on the Hill with a guest who is asking that very question today. Peter.
Thanks very much. Joined by Senator Ted Kaufman, the Democrat of Delaware. He's chairing a hearing today here on the Hill looking at financial fraud, cracking down on financial fraud. I want to ask you about the hearing and the details of it, but let me start first with the breaking news we're getting. Even at this hour, changes within the Obama economic team. Is this an Obama economic team in disarray that needs changes right now? What's going on here?
Look, 2 years, that's usually the time when people start moving on. And these have been a very, very, very difficult 2 years. I mean, we kind of slide over this, Peter. We talk about it like, well, you know what happened? It was 2 years ago. I mean, the approval rating and people thinking the country's going in the wrong direction is higher now. People have been out of work for 2 years. Just think about it. Just think about it. If you were out of work for 2 years, where you would be in terms of country. So it's been hard work the way I think they've done a great job. I think the Recovery Act clearly worked, got the economy moving again. We still got to get it moving more, and we got to get the jobs. The main thing right now is jobs, jobs, jobs. So no, I think it's normal. And I think the latest one to leave is leaving the TAR program. And the TAR program is pretty much winding down. So I don't think it's any sign of an economic team in disarray. I think it's an indication of just passage of time and a lot of hard work.
All right. One more quick one on this. Sure. I know you spent time in the corporate sector. Do they need a CEO type in Larry Summers' job? A lot of people are talking about that.
No, I don't think so. I think they got to find someone like Larry Summers. They got to find someone that's knowledgeable, understands what's going on in the government, also understands what's going on in the economy, also understands what's happening in the rest of the world. So I think that's kind of the target. I think a CEO, it's not really a great job, I think, for a CEO.
All right. Let me ask you about the focus of your hearing today. You've got the head of enforcement for the SEC, financial enforcement at the DOJ, also the FBI testifying in front of you today. Are you any more satisfied today that those agencies are able to detect financial fraud today than they were, say, 2 years ago?
Peter, that's a great question. That's why we're having the hearing. As you know, over a year ago, we passed a bill to give more prosecutors and more FBI agents to the Department of Justice Securities Exchange Commission. So today we're having Lanny Brewer from the Criminal Division, Robert Kazami from the SEC, and Kevin Phillips from the Perkins from the FBI to come in and tell us exactly what they're doing. People don't realize one of the big things that Congress has not been doing a good enough job on, I think, over the last 5 or 10 years is what we call oversight. That's just after you pass a bill, bringing the people in and saying, okay, we passed this bill, you've had these resources, what are you going to do with them? December 2009, I had a hearing with them, kind of what they were going to do with the resources. Now I'm going to come back to them, and they're each going to report on what they're doing, how it's going. And they're doing.
People point to Goldman Sachs and say that one big fish, but there are other people questioning why haven't there been more prosecutions as a result of this?
I think, and that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. I think that's a serious problem. They've had prosecutions. Some of them people are upset because the judges were upset with the decisions on Bank of America anyway, that they didn't. Bank of America and Citigroup, they didn't ask for enough money. There's a lot of questions about how they're doing it, but I'm convinced that these three really are committed to get this done. The other thing we have to do, even though it's an oversight hearing, we got to look at legislation and say, look, do we have the proper legislation to really catch people in these very complex crimes?
Bernie Madoff.
Bernie Madoff's kind of the easy one. If we just had more of an enforcement division in the SEC, I think we could have solved that. I'm talking more about these complex crimes where there's fraud, because that's what really we were after. We have this gigantic meltdown, put all these Americans out of work, put us in the situation in the hole we're in now. My basic feeling was back then, along with Senator Leahy, who's the chairman of the committee, and Chuck Grass, Republican from Iowa, was to go out and say, if anybody committed fraud, let's get them. And they're working on it. That's my main focus. I want them, and that's what they've said they're focused on, and that's what we're going to be saying. Was there fraud going on Wall Street? And people were involved in fraud, and if they are, they should go to jail, just like if you committed a crime anywhere else in our society.
All right, Senator Ted Kaufman, that hearing today, this afternoon here on Capitol Hill. Betty will be following that, a lot of other stories here on Washington.